Now, some people think that if they take on the notion that I choose to do drugs, therefore I can choose not to do drugs, that it's like a question of like, it's empowering for me to say like, I'm choosing now to do this, I can choose not to do this. Where do you see the role of choice in that? And if we haven't worked on our trauma, do we really have choice? Or how do you orient in that question?
Well, when you were caught up in whatever addiction had you in its thrall, how much choice did you experience?
How much?
Choice did you experience?
Not much.
Yeah. So we can talk about choice in the abstract, and in the abstract we all have choice. Or we can talk about choice in reality, which means how much freedom does a person have to make a choice. And freedom is not simply an external factor. In fact, significantly, it's an internal factor. It requires consciousness. I think you've had Eckhart Tolle here, have you?
Yeah, Eckhart a few times.
Yeah. Oh, you've already had him a few times, and this is. Oh, okay. All right.
Twice.
Okay. So.
We'll bring you 3.
Only
you can come
3
3
okay.
times, next 3 years.
Okay. So he lives in Vancouver as well, as you know. He lives in Vancouver.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Have you met him and you guys hang out?
So does Tammy Simon, who's here this week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She's here.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's her 4th time actually.
4th now, okay. So, but why did I bring Eckhart up? Because he says that without consciousness, there's no freedom. That's one of his statements. And I totally agree with that. So the question of choice says to me, how much consciousness do I have in a given moment? And it's not just a general question, it's also in a given moment, how much consciousness do I have? Because at times I have terrific freedom, and believe me, I can get into emotional states where choice doesn't even appear on the horizon. And the unconscious, this is where trauma comes in again, is very much like a puppet master that pulls us on a string. We have as much freedom as a puppet does when the unconscious takes over. So to me, choice, the real issue with choice when it comes to addiction or anything else is how do we promote people's freedom so that they can have actual choice.
Right. Yeah, Eckhart talks about it like the pain body. There's a pain body that kind of like takes you over. And I think at the heart of kind of one approach is that if there's an underlying wound or trauma, that as long as that can be dormant for a while, right? We might be able to behave in the world and function, but something happens and all of a sudden that dormant trauma becomes triggered and activated, and then all of a sudden a different part of ourselves come out. And I'm wondering, how do you begin to identify what the real source of that is? Like when you're getting trauma ignited. Like I can feel pissed off about a lot of different things at different times, but there's a certain pissed off that has a certain energy or charge to it that feels different to me. It feels like it comes from more than just the situation at hand.
Well, when I teach my students in compassion inquiry, one of the insights I want them to understand is that whenever there's tension, it requires attention. Whenever there's tension, now I wish I could follow that teaching. It's a beautiful teaching, if only I could follow it sometimes. But whenever there's tension here, you pretty much know that you're dealing with the past. Now, how do you get at the sources of the past and what actually happened? Well, there's a whole lot of ways to do it, many therapeutic modalities, some of them, talking therapy or somatic therapy of Peter Levine's, or, sensory motor therapy of Pat Ogden, or my compassion inquiry, or hypnosis, or psychedelics, or any one of these things, in internal family systems of Dick Schwartz. But pretty much any time you realize that your present physiological, emotional state seems out of proportion to what's actually going on in the present, you know that you're in the grips of the past.
Got it. Wow. And when you notice that in yourself, how do you work with that? We had talked backstage. You went through a tough couple months. I know you did something with Prince Harry that a lot of people got all activated by. And I know, everybody can relate to feeling activated by things. And I think when you're a public figure, it's even more intense, right? Because there's thousands of people who can get activated. And I'm curious, how do you navigate when you feel that in yourself? And do you have particular practices or orientations that help you? And I know you've explored psychedelics and explored lots of modalities.
Well, look, I have to confess that I'm just getting through a period where I have not been very adept at applying my own teachings or anybody else's. I've been very much in the grips of the past. So I don't want to sit here and pretend that you listen to some kind of an expert who's got it figured out. I don't. I do understand it, but working it through, I've realized recently, again, it's an ongoing process and far from complete in my case.
Yeah.
But the Prince Harry thing was interesting. For those of you by the way, I should give you a warning here. So I interviewed Prince Harry, and the London Sunday Times wrote an article, and they said, "Don't trust a man who's wearing many rings." Okay, so I'm wearing these same 3 rings that I wore with Andrew. If anybody doesn't trust me, leave. You can get your money back. Okay? if you think I'm wearing too many rings, but the reaction to that interview in much of social media and particularly the British gutter press, which included some of the most famous papers in Britain, was really hostile.
Yeah.
And I thought I was past it.
Yeah. Past being affected by that.
Past being affected by it.
Sure.
And I was surprised how much it got to me.
Yeah.
And especially when you don't have the opportunity to respond immediately,
Right.
And I called up a colleague, a very well-known colleague or friend, a psychiatrist, actually Dan Siegel. Many of you know his work. Yeah. And
he's been here before. Yeah.
Do you have to keep rubbing it in?
Sorry.
Well, he should have been here. And there's a wonderful. Do you know the book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Charlie McKeesey, and has he been here?
No.
Okay. And in the book, the horse is the most grounded of the 4 friends, and one of them asked the horse, "What's the most courageous thing you've ever said?" And the horse says, "Help."
Wow.
It's so hard to ask for help.
Yeah.
But you know what? In the aftermath of this Harry thing, I said, "I need help here."
Yeah.
So Dan and I had a conversation.
Yeah.
And he said, "What is it about this whole thing that upset you so much, that got to you so much?" And you and I were talking about this dynamic before we came on stage here. And I said, it's not being seen. Having a distorted view of me.
Yeah.
And he said, and of course this is precisely where I would take anybody else that I was talking to, but I couldn't get there myself without somebody prompting me. Yeah. And Dan said, "Well, when you were an infant," and this is true for me, when you were an infant, and those that don't know, I was a Jewish infant under the Nazis in Hungary. When you're an infant, not being seen threatened your life.
Wow.
And I said,
Wow.
I got it.
Yeah.
And there was an immediate release
Wow.
of that tension,
Wow. Wow.
So it can show up this many years later in a completely different form and still...
And the relief was just seeing the original, the original kind of source, if you will.
Well, I'm sorry, what was the question?
When you said you experienced relief, was the relief seeing the source or close.
I get it now. This is what's going on, and actually, I'm not threatened by any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Who cares what says about whom? I mean, that doesn't threaten me.
Yeah, got it.
But as long as I'm caught in that dynamic of not being seen, threatens my life. Literally, it felt like it.
Yeah.
You know, the upset was really disproportionate. So, yeah.